Hi, I just got done doing my my May 10th tarot challenge, and I just literally hit stop and then record because I'm gonna keep talking, and I'm going to talk about deck collecting. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about deck collecting and what my experience was. And what I'm going to draw a lot on is addiction because I am an addict. I still struggle with that word. I need to, whatever. But I have very addictive tendencies in all areas of my life. And that plays a lot into my experience with debt collecting. So, if you if you struggle with, if you deal with any kind of addiction issues, compulsions, obsessions, then I think that that you'll be able to relate to some of the things I'm saying. If you in no way struggle with addiction, or not very much, or especially not when it comes to tarot, then you might not relate as much, or you might not agree with what I'm saying, which is fine. Everybody has their own different thoughts on this subject, and mine comes from that place, and so that's where I'm coming from. So I'm going to take it back really quick to when I first picked up my first tarot deck, because I think it's important. I think this is one of the most important points I can make. When I first got into the tarot, I wish I could remember. I think my first ever deck was the Arthurian Tarot. I'm almost positive it was. I remember even consecrating it outside. I was so happy to have a deck. And then within a few months, I think I got the Wildwood because I ran across it in Barnes & Noble. And I thought, oh my God, a pagan deck. Look how, so I bought it. And then somewhere in there too, I went to my neighboring city to the witchy shop and found the Centennial Rider-Waite. And I don't think in any of that time I was definitely not looking to collect decks. I wasn't looking for really a soul deck, I don't think. I was just happened to run across a couple more decks is what it was. The Wildwood I kept but didn't use. The Arthurian I ended up giving to a friend, the friend that introduced me to the tarot. And the Centennial was my deck for years. My one and only deck for years was the Centennial Rider-Waite, the Centennial Edition. And so when I first got into tarot, to me, it didn't matter. It mattered. I wanted to like the deck, that I had. And I liked all three decks. I ended up liking the Centennial more, and, so I used the Centennial. But it wasn't so much about the deck. It was much more about what that deck could do, how it could help me to grow as a person, how it could help me to see things I wouldn't normally see. In fact, I wasn't even thinking about reading for other people at that time. It was simply for me. And I felt it was very sacred. I was getting messages from some divine source, from the universe. I always got flutters when it was in my hands and I was doing readings. I treated it as sacred, as something very profound. And so deck collecting wasn't even a thought. And that's, and then I used it off and on for years. I never really dived into it. I used it when I wanted to, put it away when, for months when I wasn't using it. It was an off and on thing. And then, I don't know why I didn't find the tarot community back then, online. I don't know if it didn't exist so much at that time, or if I don't think I really looked. But when I finally did decide to look on YouTube for whatever, Lord knows what the first thing I searched for on YouTube was. If it was for looking at a deck walkthrough, it might have been I was interested in this deck, went to see it. It could have been any number of, I'm just guessing that's probably what it was. One of the things I would have gone to YouTube for was, I wonder if I'm going to like this deck, so let's go see if somebody else has it. And then lo and behold, everybody's doing, I found all this, all these people on YouTube that are doing tarot stuff and Facebook groups and deck walkthroughs and spiritual talks. And I was like, woo. And I jumped right in, right in. And that is when the deck collecting began. So, okay. I think it is important it's important to know that I got clean for the first time probably 9 years ago, and stayed clean for like 7 years. I basically 7 whole years, 2 gaps, 2 days, 2 days off. I took 2 days off in that 7 year time, and or maybe 6 years, somewhere around there. I'm not, no specifics, but that I was clean when I found the tarot community, and when I was in that space. And when I am clean, when I'm using, let's say, drinking, smoking, whatever, that takes up that fills my addictive need, we'll say. And this is a whole nother subject that really I don't want to speak about right now. But so when I am clean, addictive urges become even more intense, I think, for me, because I don't have a substance that is tuning me out from the world. I have no escape mechanism. So I look for that escape in other things, most of the time. I get addicted to relationships. Like, I was addicted to men for a long time, to relationships. And I haven't been in a relationship in ages because it suits me very well. So I will use anything, and I will use those things to a degree that it becomes harmful for me, because I do suffer, because I struggle with addiction. I classify as obsessive and compulsive. It is obsession with a certain, whatever that certain thing is that you're addicted to, and then the compulsion to act out on that obsession. So with decks, it became very quickly addicted to finding my soul deck, and so most of this was on me. This is something I do. I struggle with this in so many areas of my life. So it was just kind of a given that once I jumped into the tarot and started realizing there were so many different decks, that I would do this. It was kind of a given. Should have seen it coming. I never do. But I know that, when I got online, I saw all these deck walkthroughs, and I saw people talking about a soul deck. And so I immediately got into that space of, I want a soul deck. I need to find the deck that most speaks to me. Everybody talks about it. Some people seem to have found it. And I struggle with, they're needing to fill my spirituality, my need for spirituality with something outside of myself. And I struggled with it way more just a few years ago than I do now. So I was constantly looking for something to fill that need, that I couldn't rely on God, the God of my childhood. No, that wasn't happening. So I needed something. And so when I heard of the soul deck, I thought, this deck I will just know it when I see it. We will be best friends. We'll connect. And so, based on that, and then I started my channel and wanting content for my channel and being like, well, everybody else does deck walkthroughs, so I'll do deck walkthroughs as well. Not enough storage space, had to go delete some stuff. So I kept buying, and every deck I bought would be, maybe this will be my soul deck, and I'd flip through it once, and I would say, nope, didn't feel it, and I'd put it up on my shelf. And then before I knew it, I had, 30, 40 decks sitting there doing nothing for me, because they weren't my soul deck, and I always went back to the same couple decks anyway. And so I had amassed this collection, and then deck overwhelm hit. And I've heard other people speak about this, so we know it's a real thing for some people. Deck overwhelm happened to me bad. Like, I got so overwhelmed with all these decks that I didn't even get to know that anytime I would go to do any reading for me or for anybody else, it would be a struggle. Like, which deck do I use? And it would become so overwhelming that I just wouldn't read because I didn't even want to think about it. I didn't want to struggle with it. And then the decks that I did use, my readings weren't ever, at that time I was still baby tarot. And so my readings were all over the place because I certainly hadn't learned as much as I know now today, and I wasn't connecting with these decks, so I didn't really grasp their imagery or the overall feeling of the deck. So it's very hard to do readings. Not impossible, and today I can do it better than I did then. Is pick up any deck anywhere and be able to read it somewhat. But especially back then, without knowing much about the tarot, to use all these decks with different feelings and different artwork was just so overwhelming. And I didn't learn much about the tarot because I was all over the place. And at the time it was happening, I think that I somewhat knew. Like I was like, I really shouldn't be buying this deck. I don't need any more. This is an issue. I know what this is. We've been here before, Shane. But I kept doing it because of the compulsion, obsession, getting onto Amazon, indie websites, looking at them. And then in order for that obsession to go away, to stop thinking about that deck that I'm thinking about getting, click, buy, obsession gone. Now I don't have to think about it anymore. It's bought. Now I can relax. And that's me. That's what I do. I work on it. I work on it. Oh. So then I left for overseas. And I packed up a few decks, got rid of a lot of decks, and took like 10 decks, which is ridiculous. To me, that is ridiculous. My whole backpack, the bottom of my backpack, my carry-on was just filled with decks. Was like a brick of decks. I got stopped at security because they had to check out all the decks because they couldn't see what it was. It was just this big brick that I was lugging around with me, which is ridiculous. And the whole time I was gone, I used, I think, 2 of those decks, maybe. It was nothing but addiction and obsession, unfounded obsession with all of this. That encouraged me and to do it. And it wasn't, and then things went really crazy when I went overseas. And I came home extremely broken by a lot of different things. And one of those things was the tarot. What I had founded and based the tarot on had been shattered for me. And so I put the tarot up for a couple of years, and I was gone for, maybe like a year and a half. And thank God that spark came back, and I was afraid it never would, to be honest. I didn't think it ever was going to, and I was very sad about that, but it's not something you can force. I don't think one can force themselves to feel attuned to the tarot or to feel inspired by, the tarot. It's something that really kind of is there, and if it's going to be there, like I want it to be there, there's got to be a spark. And that spark came back a few months ago, and that's when I got on my channel again. And yes, I bought a few decks. I do have a little pile right here of ones that I am getting rid of because I'm cycling. If I'm getting a deck and I'm not feeling it, so there's still some consumerism there. I've gotten better. Before it would have been, oh, a pretty deck, buy it. Now it's, oh, a pretty deck, let's look at a walkthrough. Let's think about how I'm really going to be using this. Let's think if it's really there sitting on my desk, am I going to pick that up? Now let's give it a few days and see if I'm still attracted to it. And more often than not, after a few days, I'm like, eh. So, for me personally, deck collecting isn't one that interests me because I want to really connect to the few decks that I do own. I want that connection. And for me, to have that connection, I need to be solely focused on that specific deck. I can't have a wall of decks behind me because there will always be another deck I think might be calling me or one that I might want to work with. And I will never be able to focus on one deck and truly connect to it like I want to. Like how my journey started initially 10 years ago. I was feeling like that it's a sacred tool. It's not something that I want to use as a consumable item. So, and 2, it's really not an option. because of addiction. For me, I know that if I really start buying all these decks, it'll never be enough. No number of decks would ever be enough for me. I would want every deck imaginable. I would be buying a deck a day. I would go broke. I would probably go in debt. I would spend all the money I don't have to get decks, and that's so. There's a couple of different reasons I do not want to be a deck collector. And the biggest for me, and take this with a grain of salt because this is me. So if you're a collector and you're gonna get all nasty about this, just know that I'm perfectly fine with you doing you, 100%. But for me, this is me. I see the tarot as a very sacred tool. I do. That's how I want to view it. That's how I, want to feel about it. And I'm getting closer to that every day, to feeling like that again. And it makes me so, so happy. It's a sacred tool. And I feel like if I am going to go and just be a consumer and buy all these decks that I don't need, that I'm perversing it. I am perversing it. This is how I feel. I am making a spiritual, divine tool into just another object. Just another object. And that's probably because that's where I am in my life. That's where I need to be. And that is 100% how I feel. As far as deck collectors go and people that do collect decks on YouTube, I don't have much to say about that because I am not those people. And I'm at a place in my life where I really don't want to judge other people for doing whatever they feel is right. There are certain exceptions, but deck collecting isn't one of them. I am certainly not saying that every deck collector is an addict by any means. There are healthy ways to be a collector. I don't know how to do that very well, but I'm sure there are a lot of people that do. That being said, I do feel that some collectors probably do struggle without knowing it, even with addiction in that area, and maybe addiction in other areas of their lives. I don't know, and I'm not diagnosing anybody because I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm just saying that I have no doubt in my mind that collectors do, not every single one, but a lot of them probably struggle with addictive tendencies. And so this kind of conversation in the community is 100% needed, and it's justified, and it wouldn't matter if it wasn't. People can talk about whatever they want to on their channels. But I think that it is definitely a needed conversation in the community. Because I think a lot of people are blinded by this. And I've seen a lot of people bring it up. When I've been looking at other videos and saying, I get it. I have suffered from deck overwhelm. And I've had to purge. And I've had, all this. We know what purging is. People talk about it all the time, having to get rid of decks because I've got too many. So I don't think that, this, it's a thing, and it's always been a thing. It's just not talked about heavily because some people like to get really pissed about it. And it's those people are debt collectors. And I just have to imagine that the ones that are getting the most pissed about debt collecting being talked about are the ones that do struggle with addictive issues. The ones that are most offended are the ones that inwardly do know, probably, that they're struggling a little bit with this. Because nobody in any video I've watched has said debt collecting is a bad thing. Nobody has. They've come from their own experience with it. And to attack anybody for that is certainly unjustified. In my experience is debt collecting was not healthy for me. There are some people, I'm sure, like I've said, that are perfectly fine collecting. Especially if you have the money, the time, the desire, go for it. What I wish people would do that have large channels, right, and that do a lot of deck walkthroughs, because some of these larger channels are built entirely on doing deck reviews, unboxings, and walkthroughs. This is what they do. You won't see hardly any other video coming out from them besides this. And I think that this is my feeling, there is a responsibility that comes along with that. And I think that responsibility is to say, collecting like I do is not for everybody, and there is a danger in it for some people. When people come into this community, I came because I was looking for spirituality. I was looking for a community of spiritual people who loved the tarot. And I came because I was broken. That need for spirituality came because I was in parts of myself very broken. And so I have to imagine, based on my experience, that some people come here for the same reason. People that reach for the tarot and for divination tools and for self-transformative tools such as the tarot and oracle decks, and astrology even, come because they are in some areas broken and they're searching, they're reaching for meaning and for truth and for soul searching. And so they come here in that state of mind, and the things they're seeing, nobody's forcing to watch them. Nobody's forcing them to watch these things, but it is a huge part of the tarot community and what we're seeing and what they see when they come in. And what I saw when I came in the community is just lots of consumerism, lots and lots of consumerism. And it makes one think that it becomes kind of part of the tarot and what the tarot is. So people coming in start to think, I need a soul deck. I need to be looking for the right deck for me. There's so many decks out there that which one is it? So I'm going to have to start buying them to figure out which one it is. And nobody ever gives this warning. I didn't hear it when I came in that look, this can be harmful. And no, there is no reason for people to be buying deck after deck after deck after deck. And I just think that there is a responsibility on some of these channels that do this to say that. And for those that would say it's no different than a makeup channel, for instance, and we don't hear makeup channels saying, listen, ladies, be careful when buying makeup because it can be addictive. If that is your argument, for shame, because the tarot is not equivocal to makeup in any way. The tarot is a spiritual tool. It is a spiritual tool. Some people don't use it that way. Some people don't look at the tarot as a spiritual tool. Some people might look at it as just more of a object, as art, which is fine for them. That is fine for them. It can be certainly done like that. But I see it as a very spiritual tool, and I think people coming into the community, at least some of them, have to be thinking of it as a spiritual tool as well. So we can't really compare deck walkthroughs and unboxings to makeup tutorials. It's not a fair comparison. Because I think there is a responsibility coming along with a spiritual tool to, in some ways, act in a more ethical manner, in a more moral way. And not everybody will see it like that. And it's not a requirement. You can be a very bad person and still be a tarot reader. I'm not the best person, and I'm a reader, and I will even do walkthroughs. And I do buy decks, and I do walkthroughs and flip throughs, but I certainly intersperse them with what I feel is the material I want to put out. My channel isn't all about decks and walkthroughs, and it never will be. Excuse me. I just think it's a shame, and it goes right back to the hierarchy thing. It goes right back to, and I don't know why I repeat myself. I'm sure other people have noticed that. It annoys me when I watch my videos back sometimes that I will say something and then I'll just say that same sentence again. Like I'm reinforcing it. It bugs me. But I do it. So, what was I saying? I don't think that's basically, that's been my experience with deck collecting. Those are my thoughts. Yeah, right back to the hierarchy thing. Um, People coming into the community will automatically look at people with high numbers in lots of videos as spiritual gurus. I did. And I've heard many people say that they have, fallen in that same hole. And so, unfortunately, they do equate any kind of tarot video with spirituality. They equate any channel as being, they equal it spiritual. And it's just not the case. And I'm not saying I'm a saint by any means, but there are channels out there that focus on tarot, oracle, astrology, who aren't very spiritual, who don't focus on spiritual material. They are out there, so we cannot equate one with the other. And that's something I think that we keep needing to say. We need to keep that somewhat alive, so that people new in the community know, look, please pay attention. Let it resonate with you. Use your intuition. What channels are working for you? What's giving you what you're really wanting? And which really might not be what you're looking for. Don't get sucked into that trap of thinking, hierarchy. That, that large channels equal large spirituality. That's all. Thanks for watching. I have thought a lot about lately about the content that I'm putting on my channel. I do like to be a little bit controversial, and I'm not, and I was talking to, somebody that really helps me out about this, and I've had to take a couple weeks to really toss this back and forth and think about what I'm doing on my channel. What do I want to do? What do I not want to do? And what it comes down to is a lot of the most important topics in the world are controversial. And I do like to talk about those on my channel. And I will no longer make videos that I'm not sure about, or that I don't feel very strongly about, or that I'm wavering about, because that gets tricky. But I do plan on putting videos out there that I hope make people think, that certainly make me think, that promote conversation. I will not respond in any way, shape, or form to anybody who is doing any kind of online shaming, bullying, name calling, swearing, none of that. So if I see that on my channel, it will simply be deleted. I'm not going to put up with anything that I feel is just in any way an attack. Now, come at me with anything else, debate it, I don't care. And I've done it with you guys on my channel. If you have a different opinion, give it to me, please. And don't hold back. But I think most of you know how to do that respectfully without using names. And, so I don't think I have to worry about it too much. But I will no longer be looking on Instagram for the naysayers. I won't go looking on YouTube channels for people that have negative things to say. And I won't tolerate it on my channel. And it's not something that I will even discuss or give warning about anymore. It will just be gone. And that has to be my stance, because I want to talk about these things, but I need to maintain my own sanity. So that's my, and some of these videos, the more controversial ones, you'll probably see the likes and dislikes off as well, because I just don't even want to be tempted to be bothered by it. That's where we are. That's where Shane is. So thank you everybody for watching. Bye.